Namaskar viewers. Hello and welcome to Sansad TV. I'm Teena Jha. You're watching Perspective. Starting 1st of October 2025, China will introduce a brand new visa category, the K visa, designed to draw young STEM graduates and research scholars from around the world. This move marks one of Beijing's rare but significant efforts to open its doors to global talent. But the timing is striking, and this is what is being talked about. Just weeks after the United States announced a sharp hike in H-1B visa fees, a program long relied upon by companies to hire skilled professionals, especially from India, China has stepped in with what many are calling an alternative pathway. So could the K visa emerge as a game changer for scholars and professionals? What opportunities does it create, and what hurdles still remain for those looking to live and work in China? To help us answer these questions, we are joined by two distinguished experts. I'm delighted to welcome on the program today Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, former diplomat. Ambassador, thank you for your time. Welcome to the program. Also joining us is Professor Srikanth Kondapalli, Center for East Asian Studies, School of International Studies, JNU. Professor, always a delight to welcome you on my programs on Sansad TV. In fact, let's start the conversation with you today. China traditionally is not seen as a major destination for global talent. So how do you read this rare move by Beijing of introducing the K visa?
The Chinese effort is kind of US-China conflict is seen in this K visa related issue. In the background of the tariffs that have been escalated since the Liberation Day announcement in the US, there has been a contest between the two sides. So this is a reflection of that policy. However, the Chinese K visa is no exception before, because they have been importing what they call chuanjia, which is foreign experts, since the 1950s. And for example, they imported something like 62,000 Soviet technicians in the 1950s. But due to the ideological conflict, they all went away by 1960. And then in the 1980s, when the Four Modernizations campaign began, they started importing a lot of foreign experts. And many of them, of course, today have gone away because the criteria has become the STEM education rather than the other translation jobs or others. So there has been a change in China's recruitment of foreign experts. Today, they want to rise in the S&T related matters at the global level. And they actually made several breakthroughs in terms of DeepSeek AI, Manus and Kimi AI, as well as the 56% of global production of EVs, electric vehicles, and over 70-odd percentage of solar panels that they were able to assemble to the globe. So they made substantial progress in the technology, and if they want to retain this edge, they need to import a number of STEM education employees. So this is the latest move by China. However, to add one more caveat, China's economy has been, and with the tariffs, it is estimated to go down to roughly about 4%. So there is news that many employees in China are not getting their salaries regularly. And so this actually adds to the burden of the K visa related.
Clearly, and there are several other hurdles and roadblocks as well, about which we will discuss in due course of the program. Ambassador, how significant is the timing of this move? That's clearly the most talked about aspect as far as the K visa is concerned, because it comes just days after the United States decided to hike the H-1B visa fee. Do you see this as an attempt by China to position itself as an alternative hub of global talent, and especially when it comes to research scholars in the STEM field?
Well, Teena, first of all, thanks for having me on your show. You know, a new talent battle seems to be emerging as China launches its K visa. This visa contrasts sharply with the increasingly expensive and restrictive US H-1B visa program. So, as you said, the timing is very important. China's new visa is designed to attract young foreign talent in the STEM fields, that is science, technology, engineering, and maths, by offering an easier pathway into the country. Now, China is capitalizing on the new US policies that have alienated many international professionals. And unlike most global work visas, it places the individual, not the employer, at the center of migration. Applicants can enter China first and then decide whether to study, conduct research, launch a startup, or join a lab. So, crucially, the visa does not require employer sponsorship, which is a sharp contrast with the US H-1B visa. Now, therefore, the K visa could become particularly appealing to STEM graduates from countries like India, which was the largest beneficiary of H-1B visas. And these students are now exploring alternatives due to the rising costs and restrictions in the United States. However, as you pointed out, there could be certain things which are not clear. There could be some restrictions. There would be perhaps some hurdles. Particularly, Indian students will find some problems. Firstly, there are unclear eligibility requirements. Details of the exact eligibility criteria, financial incentives, and pathways to long-term settlement or citizenship are unclear. Secondly, there is the language barrier. Most Chinese tech firms operate in Mandarin, which can limit opportunities for non-Chinese speakers and may deter talent. Thirdly, of course, for Indians, there are the geopolitical tensions. So, ongoing geopolitical tensions between India and China could influence how willing China is to offer opportunities to Indian professionals and vice versa. Then, of course, there is this issue of long term opportunities. Unlike the US, China does not typically offer citizenship to foreigners, and it remains to be seen whether the K visa leads to permanent residency pathways, which are a significant draw for many. So, while Indian STEM students will show increased interest in China's new K visa due to rising barriers in the US, I think a mass shift is unlikely in the short term.
Absolutely, and especially for the young aspiring Indians who nurture their American dream, Professor, especially in context of the STEM graduates and the young research scholars. How viable an alternative could the China's K visa be? And given the challenges that Ambassador already spoke about, there are geopolitical tensions between India and China, but there are also several other factors such as food and the language.
Indeed, these are very important considerations. At issue is about 85,000 visas that are given by under the H-1B model. Out of this, the Amazon has been recruiting about 10,000. And Infosys, Wipro, and others have actually scaled down because of the mounting costs. Last year, the Infosys had recruited about 2,000 or so, and others have also scaled down their H-1B visa applications because the employer here has to give in writing and pay the visa fee of nearly $1 lakh. So this is one major constraint that has been prevalent in the recent times. With the K visas, there is no restriction on the fees. There is actually no fees. And they wanted to basically, the employer has no sponsorship required. And there is no annual cap that is there compared to the H-1B visa, which has 85,000 numbers. So there are opportunities in China for thousands of STEM graduates to the Galwan incident. And after that, no visas were given at that point of time. The Chinese have actually restricted travel because of the COVID-19 lockdowns. Till December 2022, they have not allowed anybody to enter into China. And those Indian students who are studying mostly in Tianjin, nearly 26,000 students in the medical colleges, they were all sent back to India, and medical students were conducting classes online when you require to go to the laboratory for these studies. Yet many of them learned online and also graduated in medical sciences from China without attending physically classes. So this has created a model where there could be disruption in future because the Communist Party takes the decision whether to shut it down at any given point of time. Actually, strangely, we are also seeing that now in the United States with the Trump administration suddenly revoking visas and sending. We have, for example, 11,000 illegal migrants who were chained and they were sent back by the Air Force planes. So both China and United States are quite unpredictable in terms of the visas and other procedures. What it looks like attractive is Germany, where it has also shown a way out for the STEM graduates to go to Germany and get these visas. So these are structural problems probably we will have to wade through in the near future.
Clearly. So you spoke about both the opportunities as well as the challenges, Professor. In China's context, how challenging are aspects like academic freedom, integration in the Chinese society, broader geopolitical concerns as far as China and the global order is concerned, in addition to some of the hurdles that you spoke about in terms of, say, the cultural aspect and the political aspect, how big are challenges like integration and academic freedom as well?
As far as freedom is concerned, it is almost zero. There are new restrictions that have been in place in China recently in the last 10 years in the universities and in the institutions of higher learning. Previously, there were a lot of freedom. We could go around and talk to people, etc. But that freedom is gone under the new restrictions imposed by the Chinese government. So these STEM graduates who want to apply for the K visa will have to face a lot of problems socially, apart from the language barrier, food, and others. There is the issue of circulating freely in the society. So that is a big problem in China, especially with the recent restrictions. We do not know if the Chinese government will remove those restrictions in future because of these K visa requirements. But they did experiment free trade area in Shanghai, in Hainan province, and in other regions, but it is not quite successful so far, especially in terms of the employment opportunities. China actually is not known for providing employment opportunities. They wish to, in most of the SEZs, special economic zones, joint venture companies, if a job is to be done by a Chinese, they would remove the foreign worker or technician. It has happened with many Japanese companies in China. There are some 87,000 Japanese companies in China. And once the Chinese have acquired the skills, they have asked the Japanese to leave in these factories like Toyota, Mitsubishi, and others. It has also happened with the European companies who have established their base in China. So there is actually a limitation for this structurally in the Chinese political system. But we do not know if they are going to remove these restrictions and showcase a more freer atmosphere in China.
So, Ambassador, there are so many challenges that Professor spoke about, culturally, politically, geopolitical context as well. It's unlikely that global professionals, and a large number of whom are Indians, especially in context of the H-1B visa holders, it's unlikely that those Indian professionals will now rush to China. But if China removes those restrictions and those limitations, if it tries and makes the system more and more appealing compared to the H-1B visa, do you think China could become the next global hub of young talent, and especially the Indians? And if not, could this be an opportunity for India to nurture its talent back home?
Well, let me put it this way. The contrasting visa policies are a symbol of the US-China rivalry for technological dominance. And in that context, Indians will certainly be playing a role. China is portraying itself as an open and welcoming country, while the US appears to be closing its doors. So the introduction of the K visa intensifies the global competition for skilled workers. Other countries like Germany, South Korea, and New Zealand are also loosening their visa regulations to attract talent that might otherwise have gone to the United States. So while the United States remains a top destination, the rise of flexible alternatives, such as those provided by China's K1 visa scheme, these are shaking up the landscape for early career scientists and engineers. Now, let me mention that the K visa will perhaps remove some hurdles. Importantly, the employer sponsorship for young STEM talent. However, persistent challenges which we have already discussed, like language, culture, and limited pathways to permanent settlement, will limit the appeal for many. China's K visa will certainly attract a small but notable number of Indian STEM students.
So what kind of sectors do you think, Ambassador, will open up for the Indian professionals, and especially the STEM graduates? Which specific sectors do you see attracting the skilled professionals?
Well, all sectors where their talents in these areas, the STEM areas, will be utilized. Certainly, there will be new prospects that will be opening up for them. However, the prospect of Indians rushing for China's new K visa is not likely, though we will see a moderate increase in applications from Indian STEM professionals. Now, China is deliberately timing, as you pointed out, this K1 visa rollout to coincide with the tightening US visa policies. However, these significant barriers which we have discussed will make a mass rush improbable for now. However, if China makes modifications and amendments, then surely sectors like research, academics, the tech sector, all these will possibly be those where Indian talents will be absorbed. So let's see how things shape out. This K visa is going to be introduced. So everybody is waiting very anxiously to see what other details emerge in course of time, and whether or not Indian students start flocking to China. Though, of course, the United States will still remain the number one preferred destination because of the opportunities for permanent settlement and longer-term settlement which exist there. However, there is a shake-up, and this is very, very interesting in the global context.
So, Ambassador, in the wake of the United States closing its doors, if you were advising, say, a young STEM graduate today from India, would you recommend China as a viable option, or would you say, would you advise caution? Would you say, let's wait and watch?
No, I will certainly advise people to keep their eyes open, look out for opportunities, and see what's on offer. China's K visa will certainly attract a small but notable number of Indian STEM students. And as Professor mentioned, China has long offered extensive incentives to attract high-end talent, particularly ethnic Chinese returnees through their programs like the 1,000 Talents Plan. I've read about this plan in great detail and I find it very interesting. So while specific details for K visa holders are still being finalized, it is expected that the program will extend similar, though potentially scaled down versions of these incentives to young international STEM graduates to make China a competitive and appealing destination. Certainly, there will be financial incentives. The startup grants, the Chinese government and local municipalities often provide significant startup grants to new companies in high-tech fields. This would allow K visa holders who want to start their own ventures to do so with some financial backing. Then there are also tax benefits. China has used individual income tax incentives to attract talent to key development areas. So it is likely that similar incentives such as rebates on income tax, etc., will be offered. Then there will be research funding. China is certainly going to do that for those engaging in research, particularly at universities or government-affiliated institutions. China will offer increased research funding. And early career researchers with K visas could be prioritized for these grants, especially in cutting-edge fields like artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and biotechnology.
So taking on from what the ambassador said, Professor, while it's a rivalry between the top two economies on attracting the best global talent, where can India position itself? What opportunity do you see for the Indian policymakers, universities, also the industry, because it's going to be a collaborative effort in creating an ecosystem that remains attractive for our own talent and which also attracts global talent? Professor?
I think that is the only model. I think that is the only model that we can accept at this moment, even in other fields as well. China is not the best alternative for our young STEM graduates. In the case of the United States, the costs have actually gone up in STEM education. We probably will see that the costs have been very high. The application fees is roughly around $6,000–7,000, and the total cost for applying for these visas is about $9,000 to $10,000 overall, if you include all the expenses. So many of the Indian companies today are concerned about it, because if we have to have, say, then the costs on the Indian companies would be roughly about $60 billion. Out of the
We lost your audio, Professor. Can we take this answer again?
I was trying to suggest that the Indian government should give more incentives for the STEM graduates to be retained in India, especially IITs and IIM graduates. Secondly, we need to improvise the infrastructure in these places, because that is the push factor for many Indian techies who go abroad. I think it is necessary that the government of India should seize this as an opportunity and
clearly, I think that is the most viable option that Professor is speaking about, that if we are to achieve the goal of becoming a Viksit Bharat by 2047, it's important that the best minds become drivers in propelling that kind of growth that we have envisioned. And for that, we need to retain the best talent, nurture them at home. So with that, we'll have to wrap up the conversation. Thank you once again, Ambassador and Professor, for joining us on the program, sharing your thoughts, your views with us and our viewers. To you viewers, thank you very much for your time as well.
संसद टीवी के और भी प्रोग्राम्स देखने के लिए सब्सक्राइब करें हमारा YouTube चैनल और हाँ, इन्हें लाइक और शेयर करना ना भूलें।